60 Minutes interview, President Assad claimed that ISIS has expanded in Syria since the U.S.-led coalitions conducting airstrikes began.
Actually, ISIS has expanded since the beginning of the strikes, not like some American wants to sugarcoat the situation as to say that it's getting better. ISIS has been defeated and so on. Actually, no. You have more recruits. Some estimates that they have 1,000 recruits every month in Syria and Iraq. They are expanding in Libya, and many other Al-Qaeda affiliates organizations have announced their allegiance to ISIS. So that's the situation.
Let's see what General Jack Keane thinks about this. He's retired four-star chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and a Fox News military analyst. General, good morning. Good to have you with us. Obviously, he wants us to get rid of ISIS for him. ISIS is a huge thorn in his side, and he wants us to step it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, Assad, he's a thug and a butcher, and I hold him in total contempt, but he's right on a couple of these points. First of all, the truth is that despite taking back Kobani, which received a lot of media attention, ISIS has expanded on the ground in Syria to the east, to the southwest, and to the west. Those are the facts. Secondly, he's also right about ISIS recruiting on a regular basis. They continue to flock into Syria. Intelligence sources have released some information that is what he said. It's about 1,000 a month are still coming to Syria to join the ISIS organization, be trained and become part of the fighting force.
Right, but here's the problem, as you well know, and you've told us many times, in order to get ISIS inside Syria, the president needs a workable coalition to go into Syria, and none of those partners will be part of it unless it includes ousting Assad, right?
That's absolutely right, Martha. You put your finger right on the problem. Secretary Kerry keeps saying there is no military solution in Syria. It is only a political solution. But military action will help develop a political solution. What the region, our allies in the region, are trying to tell us is we must act against Assad by shutting down his air power, establish no-fly zones. That would open up inside the regime an opportunity for Assad to go. That's the only way the monarchs will come to the table and negotiate, if Assad is out of there. And also then, that's the only time they would move into Syria to push against ISIS on the ground. They're not going to do it while Assad is running around with his air power. That's the truth of it. And we're not going to make any progress until that happens.
Do you think the White House, I mean, I remember quite clearly, everybody does, the president standing at the podium and saying Assad must go. And now we don't say that anymore. Do they feel that the safest thing in some respects is the, sort of best of bad alternatives to leave him in place?
I'm convinced that when it comes to Syria and the Middle East, what trumps all of the president's actions is the Iranian nuclear deal that you've been discussing on this show. That trumps his actions in Syria. I think it was the reason he didn't cross the red line when the chemical weapons were released by Assad. I think it still trumps him now from even talking about removing Assad or certainly doing anything to take action in Syria that would give the Iranians the pushback and leverage that would hurt the negotiations.
Now the negotiations look pretty tenuous. I want to play one more piece of sound here from the interview with Assad from 60 Minutes and get your thoughts.
What is their connection to ISIS?
The same ideology, the same background.
So ISIS and Saudi Arabia are one and the same?
The same ideology, yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, Saudi Arabia is not a proponent of terrorism. They're not sponsoring terrorist organizations. There have been people in Saudi Arabia as individuals that have funded radical Islamist organizations, to include ISIS. There is a strain of Islam in Saudi Arabia, Wahhabism, which is a fundamentalist strain that some people have used and interpreted that and has led them to violence and jihad. And so that's the connection he's trying to make. But if we have to judge the behavior of the state, they are not ISIS. They are not conducting jihad. There's repression in the Saudi regime, to be sure, in terms of equal rights and how they treat people. And that's another issue, and they certainly deserve to be held accountable for it.
Yeah, do you think, is Saudi Arabia still a staunch ally of the United States, given our working on this deal with Iran? How do you think the Saudis perceive us at this point?
Our relationship with every major Sunni ally that we have in the region is at its worst than it's ever been, and it's all over Iran. They just look at what is taking place. Not rhetoric, actions. And all the actions that we're taking and pulling out of Iraq, not helping people in Libya, our actions in Syria, everything driven by the fact that negotiations with Iran comes first. And they believe that we're rushing headlong into a deal that's not going to serve their interest nor the region's interest in terms of stability and security. That's where they are, and it's a very, very undesirable situation.